You see the end of that roval race? I gave these to you, I believe. Did I not? Oh, no. Get your stuff this morning, didn't you?
The money coach. Get your stuff. I heard you were asking. You were begging for it. It's also today's birthday is also another singer. Gosh, who was it? Stings. No, he is. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Indeed, you have been waiting all day for the best 2 hours of your day. Coming up, it is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Not only is it Sports Talk, it is a Talking Tuesday on Sports Talk. They are talking, we're talking, you're talking, and some of you are listening. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes. I was up at Clemson today to listen to Dabo Swinney talk about Wake Forest and what a terrific offense Wake Forest has, faster than Syracuse, with a very dangerous quarterback who, by the way, played his senior year of ball in our state and was on the Shrine Bowl team as a quarterback, and a defense that's pretty good. And, they got a couple of tough losses there to one to Notre Dame, in which they played Notre Dame pretty well. And so he did his best to point the Tigers in the next direction away from the Syracuse win and get them ready for a road trip to Wake Forest. Trevor Lawrence is okay, practiced last night. It's a neck thing, not a head thing. And they just want him to get down, not take those kind of hits, and don't risk it. Otherwise, the Tigers in pretty good shape. Trayvon Mullen has got an ankle injury, rolled it up really a couple of games ago. It continues to bother him. Right now, he's not been ruled out for Saturday. Ankrum got hurt in the game against Syracuse. He has not been ruled out either. So they're rolling with their regular people as things stand right now. So the Tigers are feeling pretty good. They've got Chase Bryce ready to go as the backup quarterback, or ready to start if necessary. But feeling I got was that they're moving ahead with Trevor Lawrence, and he should be fine for Saturday. Will was at South Carolina today.
I was, Corn, and you mentioned the bumps and bruises with Clemson. There are certainly plenty with the Gamecocks, and they, of course, had concerns about their starting quarterback as well, Jake Bentley, who had a knee injury. We curiously did not get to see or talk to Jake Bentley today. According to Will Muschamp, they said that he had some treatment to get to right after practice, and then he had a class. So his weekly availability with us was something we did not get. But aside from that, they believe that he's going to be able to go, although when talking to players, they seem very non-committal about Bentley's status, at least in practice over the first couple of days this week. It seems interesting kind of seeing that and hearing also from Will Muschamp that not only did Michael Scarnecchia take reps at the ones, but so did DeCarrion Joyner. The Joyner situation certainly let our Twitter go completely nuts. People are still liking that DeCarrion Joyner is getting some work with the ones, but I honestly still think that that is a just-in-case break glass in case of emergency situation. I think if there was a package that was including DeCarrion Joyner, we would have seen it by now, but I still don't think that that is anything other than in case one or both of the starting quarterbacks between Bentley and if Michael Scarnecchia has to play on Saturday, if either of those guys go down, that's when they would see Joyner. So it still seems like Bentley is the starting guy. He will be the guy who runs out there first, minus the knee injury. A couple of other injuries to talk about from South Carolina's perspective. Eldridge Thompson, who did not make the trip to Kentucky, is still questionable with his shoulder injury. Tight end Jacob August, still in concussion protocol, the status of which is unknown. Tight end Casey Crosby, who did not play because of the broken finger, despite undergoing surgery last week after getting that injured against Vanderbilt. They're going to try and take that down to a splint, and they say he will play Saturday. Jemias Williams is probable with a shoulder injury. Also, Josh Belk, still unknown with his ankle. Brian Edwards is expected to play with his ankle injury as well. And someone who will make his season debut for South Carolina is Chad Terrell. He sat out the first 4 games, rehabbing a previously torn ACL. Those who will not play definitively are DJ Wanham, who is expected to return after the bye week, and defensive back JT Ebaycorn, who got injured in that game as well with a sprained knee. They expect him to miss not just this game, but also the A&M game, return after the bye week as well for South Carolina.
What sense did you make of Muschamp's mood at today's press conference?
Practical, I would say. He just said he was very much of the fact that most of the errors that they came into from the Kentucky standpoint were self-inflicted, from the drops, from the discipline, from the lack of execution. He thinks that they are all correctable. One thing that he continues to stress is that the effort is there. which I can't question the effort, but I can question the situation where people keep saying, oh, well, you should have been able to beat Kentucky. You should have been able to beat Kentucky. I just don't think that we gave Kentucky enough credit. And I know that that a lot was made about South Carolina's stopping them in the second half, but you still can't get behind the fact that they scored 24 points in the first half. And despite the fact that they moved the football, they could not put it in the end zone in the second half or really all night against the Wildcats.
Did he mention anything about it? Did anybody ask a question about the slow starts that they've been having?
I asked him that question a couple weeks ago, and he said that there's really nothing to that. They prepare the same way. The one thing I did ask him, too, is whether or not it behooves them that they're playing at noon on Saturday. He seemed to also not take the bait on that. But in my opinion, I think it's better that they're playing at noon on Saturday, because whenever you see a night game with this squad, they tend to think about it. They tend to dwell on it. And whatever it is, they just seem to come out lackadaisical.
You know, here is something. The Marshall game was supposed to be a night game. It looks like South Carolina could go through the entire home season without a true night game, one that kicks off after 7 o'clock, which I can't remember when the last time that happened in Columbia. And, you know, the Columbia business industry really likes those night games.
Oh, yeah.
They like people to come in, eat, stay overnight. That's got to be kind of a little kick in the budget for them. And also, I mean, look, Williams-Brice Stadium is a more intimidating place at night when the fans have had all day to get ready for it, and they're in a ripe mood, so to speak. Place rocks at night. But, you know, the atmosphere this coming Saturday for Will's Missouri Tigers.
Stop it. We're not doing that.
They're going to have to generate some excitement. The players may have to generate the excitement amongst themselves. Even though I saw a tweet by former Gamecock Eric Kimry. Basically, did you see it? He put out a tweet saying, you know, the season's not over. He's calling on Gamecock fans, supporters to stay behind the team, stay energetic, stay loud, et cetera, et cetera. You wonder if that sort of stuff falls on deaf ears when you come off a loss to Kentucky like they did.
Well, the key point to South Carolina being fired up, just put the Kentucky tape on. Look at how many times they took the revolver and shot themselves in the foot. Maybe that's why. That's why they have all those ankle injuries. They've been shooting at their ankles instead of their feet. But the games they've lost, most of it has been self-inflicted. And as I said before, I'm going by the old coach's adage that more games are lost than won. Now, to ask you a question, did Dabo talk anything about, did a light come on because out of necessity they had to run the football? Have they seen something that maybe we can just run the ball down people's throats than throwing it up all the time?
Well, I think because of their situation, they decided to focus on the run, and they challenged their offensive line to beat Syracuse up front, and obviously they did. I think Trevor Lawrence being back in the lineup Saturday, they'll go back to what they do. They're still going to throw. The thing he's proud about, you talk about the run, he is proud about what they're doing in the running game, but what they're really proud about is what they're doing in the explosion game,
right?
Among the nation's best. Right now, if the season were over, they would set a record for average yards per play at Clemson. They're at like 7.8 yards per play, which is, you know, among the best in the nation. I think I saw where Oklahoma leads the nation at like 11 yards per play, something ridiculous like that.
The one thing I think that they were trying to do last Saturday, and the thing that got them completely off schedule, was the fact that they wanted to get Trevor Lawrence in a rhythm. The first throw that he made against Syracuse was that 19-yard post pattern, right up the gut, right up the seam, and it really kind of get him in the motion. And then the second play was the fumble on the exchange, and everything just kind of hit to a thud. And I never felt like he got himself, and this is more to his credit, because during the year, he has been able to bounce back from mistakes. He never really recovered from that mistake, and it just seemed like from that moment on, he was pressing because he knew that he was going to be going back in there time and time again. If they can get him off to a better start against Wake Forest, it will only benefit him even more.
800-956-7266. If you want to grab a line and share in on the Talking Tuesday, we'll listen to you. Coming up, Will Muschamp is going to talk about Will's Tigers and the status. All right, I'm not going to keep saying that.
It's not my Tigers.
And the status of Jake Bentley.
You know my Tigers are in the upstate.
The black and gold.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Just checking some of the Vegas lines. The Clemson line's been bet up to 18 in some places, 17.5 more across the board in Vegas.
Take the points.
South Carolina is down to a pick 'em in some places. The win has it at a pick 'em.
You know, South Carolina has got to play this game like its hair's on fire. This is their season because after losing to Kentucky the way they did, and you could even hear, I listened to some of Muschamp's comments and his wording today. I mean, you know, he said that, you know, they played poorly. There's no way to hide it. They coached poorly, had them poorly prepared, et cetera, et cetera. That's not what the fans expect to see. So they've got to bounce back with a win, especially with Texas A&M coming to town. Lose this game Saturday, you might very well lose the season. You might very well lose the team, to be quite honest with you. Can they hang together through a rough spot here? And I see people who are on Twitter and saying, well, what did you expect of the South Carolina team? No one should be surprised. Hell no. This team had contender in the East written all over it in the preseason. I defy anybody to argue that point with me. When you look at the returning personnel coming off a 9-win season and also some of the personnel they added, the transfers to help in certain areas, this team and the new offensive coordinator and Dan Werner and the new strategy on offense, this offense is not supposed to be struggling against the good teams.
This is 2 years in a row that we've been told this about the offense, and it has, I would say, struggled to perform in certain cases against high caliber competition. And the other part of this too, from the standpoint of where South Carolina sits, is that last year they had this problem with the offense, but the defense kind of carried them. Now you're having a situation where the defense is not taking away the football at the rate that they were last year.
And
you're getting breakdowns, and you're basically not able to be bailed out.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you almost think that you go back to your DNA. And South Carolina's DNA through a lot of coaches is, and even Spurrier had to wake up and smell the coffee and count on the running game and run clock. That's what he did. Even the pass-happy Spurrier said, oh, this is a running team. The one thing I do think also with South Carolina is when there's high expectations, especially for this team that's still building, they seem to cower. If you tell them they don't have a chance, then they somehow relax and just go out and play.
They believe their own hype, which is unfortunate.
Our poll question, who wins, USC or Missouri? A lot of folks are voting. 65%, almost 66% are voting for Missouri. How many times have you voted?
I've not looked at it yet.
I bet you if we traced it back to your laptop, you would see a bunch.
You would not see one click from the computer on that poll.
Go to our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and get your vote in on who will win, USC or Missouri. Let's go to Bob and Casey. Then we're going to hear first from Dabo Swinney tonight. What's up, Bob? Hello. Hello.
Bobby.
I think Bob has departed. 800-956-7266.
You could say he's Bob parted.
Our email is talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter.
What? Twice in 2 weeks?
No. And on Twitter, they'll start at SportsTalkSC is how you can reach us. Let's go to Dabo Swinney from his press conference earlier today, thinking about the win over Syracuse and starting to look ahead to Wake Forest.
Proud of our team for how they competed last week. It was just a phenomenal effort from our guys. Tremendous perseverance and leadership and will to win. It was just awesome to be a part of it, and really, I think, one of those moments that you probably look back in your season when it's all said and done, and as a coach, it's really neat because there's just certain times where you go, you know what, boy, you almost can just, it's like your kids on the growth chart, I used to always have a little growth chart hanging in Clay's room, and we'd take everybody in there and you mark it, and then you'd mark it, and it was just like, sometimes you don't really see the growth as quick because you're so close to it. But that was one of those moments where I'm like, man, we really really grew as a team. And so just special to be a part of it, and love where they were last night, coming back in here and getting focused on another division challenge, going back on the road, be our third road game in this first half of the season. You know, we got an open date next week. So, you know, man, just got to do everything that we possibly can do. First of all, to get better, to improve, but to just try to play our best game and create great confidence and momentum going into the halftime of our season. And, you know, because I know that, you know, the guys will be excited about that little break, but also opportunity for us to really formulate all the things that we need to do to give ourselves a great chance for the second half. So this week is really critical in a lot of ways on getting our team better. Another big challenge, you know, Wake Forest, Dave's done a great job. They're 3-2. They got 2 tough losses. They lost a 1-score game to a really good BC team, and then they lost to Notre Dame, you know, who a lot of people think may be one of the best teams in the country, top 3 or 4 or 5 teams. So that's who they lost to, and they put 27 points up on Notre Dame, excuse me. So they're 3-2, and you know, for them, they've got 1 division loss. So obviously they don't want another one. This will be, we get everybody's best effort. That just kind of comes with the territory. But they're a problem. Offensively, they're doing some great stuff, scoring 38 points a game. I think they're second in the conference in total offense. They run the ball. They're rushing for 244 yards a game. And they play, you know, Syracuse. Well, I told y'all there's up tempo. Then they were lightning. I'm not really sure how to describe Wake Forest. I don't even really know how they get their plays called, to be honest with you. They're so fast. It is so fast, and it's all built off the run game and the RPOs and the screens, and then this little quarterback they got is a baller. He really is. He's going to be a problem for a while. He's a young player, but he is a tough competitor. Has a really good feel for, you know, what they're asking him to do.
All right, Dabo Swinney from earlier today. We'll hear more from Swinney as well as Will Muschamp as we roll through this Talking Tuesday. Let's try it again on the phone lines. We go to Chip in Spartanburg. Hello, Chip.
Hey, how you doing, Phil?
We're good, sir.
I was going to ask you a question about Clemson, but I think I'm going to ask you a question about South Carolina. I'm a South Carolina fan, alumni at South Carolina, and I'm a very positive Carolina fan, even when they went 0-11 that year. But do you think part of the problem, you know, last year they claimed a lot of the problem was offensive line. Do you think a lot of the problem now is, and I'm excluding this past game, is the quarterback, Jake Bentley? I mean, to me, I've watched him. He don't do the things that I think he should be doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's only my opinion. Just want your opinion.
He's somewhat inconsistent.
He didn't play well last week.
He has not played well in the biggest games to this point. The Clemson games, the Georgia games, the Kentucky games. We could go on down the list. He is inconsistent. He has his good days and he has his bad days. I mean, look, he played well eventually in the Michigan game to help lead them back. Turnovers helped in that bowl game and helped lead them back to a win there. He's had some good moments. He's throwing too many interceptions. That's for sure. His touchdown to interception ratio is not good. His completion percentage has come down from where it's up around 68, 69%. It's down to 63%. So he's got to get better from that standpoint. But, you know, I'm not so sure if this lack of identity with their offense is not the biggest problem.
It is. Well, that's a problem. But the other problem is his decision-making, whether it's when to pull it back, when to hand it off, when to force it. He's so completely, for lack of a better term, discombobulated. He just does not have a real feel for what he needs to do in this offense, and it's affecting its effectiveness.
Also, when his receivers drop balls, he tries to aim balls. He can't catch them for him, so he can't put them perfectly where they want.
He can't be somebody who's concerned about all the drops.
Exactly, and the other case is he doesn't look off the safety enough.
More from Muschamp. We return on this Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk. Yeah, we were talking about this right before the break here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. So Dennis Dodd put this out on CBSSports.com. We're talking about the transfer rules with how it relates to the 4-game redshirt rule. If you are not of a graduate status or you're not able to obtain December graduate status, if you're going to use the 4-game redshirt rule, you are going to have to transfer in that same semester to either D2, D3, or JUCO for the rest of the semester in order to gain immediate eligibility for the following year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to say play your 4 games and then stay on the roster and stay enrolled in school, that wouldn't satisfy the ability for you to play right away the upcoming year. You'd still have to sit out the requisite year in order to maintain that. It happened to one player, I think it was an Oklahoma State player or somebody of that nature, tried to make this happen. They were not going to be able to graduate, and he tried to stay in school, and now he's SOL because he can't necessarily find a place to go transfer.
By the way, Marty Smith of ESPN was at Clemson today. That's not all that unusual.
Mm-hmm.
He pops up there quite a bit. However,
was he comparing hair products with Trevor?
I didn't ask, but
sorry.
Considering it's Wake Forest, so the game is on ESPN on Sunday afternoon. I'm sure they'll be doing a bunch of preview stuff, but I got to believe you're going to see something popping up on ESPN's dysfunctional family of networks related to Kelly Bryant, maybe an interview with Kelly Bryant, maybe. Now, this will tick off some people because Dabo Swinney has told the media up there and anybody else who will ask, I'm not talking about Kelly Bryant. I'm not talking about anybody who's not in the program. But if ESPN comes calling with one of their high-profile reporters and a producer and a camera crew, and they want to talk about Kelly Bryant and how it impacts your program, do you think he's going to talk about it?
Well, looking at just the interviews and, again, some of the ones that ran today and those that yesterday up there, it did seem like those questions were not off limits to players, and all the players seemed to ask and answer everything involving Kelly Bryant, including a guy like Hunter Renfrow, who was probably as close with as anybody on the team with Kelly Bryant. But the fact remains is that he's not there. He made the decision, and you move on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, 800-956-7266. Couple of notes, and we're going to hear from Will Muschamp. The Clemson-Syracuse game, according to ABC PR, the Clemson-Syracuse game delivered a total live audience of 4.617 million viewers, second most watched game of last week across all networks, and a 65% improvement over the same window of last year. Former Gamecock Eric Norwood will be USC's representative for the SEC Football Legends. That'll be at the SEC Championship game on December 1st. Norwood, of course, a great player with the Gamecocks back in his day. And the Clemson basketball team announced today that it will play an exhibition game October 27th at UNC Wilmington. All net proceeds donated to the benefit of the Good Shepherd Center and UNCW's Campus Emergency Fund for Student Hurricane Relief. And this is something no doubt close to Brad Brownell's heart since he was once the head coach at Wilmington.
Will Muschamp speaking to the media earlier today about the Missouri Tigers Mayor's Cup, 9th edition of such, coming into town. I know
everybody wants the Mayor's Cup.
Hey, man, they have the Mayor's Cup. It's a thing. It's the 9th time it's being renewed.
What is the Mayor's Cup, actually?
It's a cup. You've seen it. We have pictures of it on our website.
Okay, it's the Mayor's Cup or the Mayor's Cup. It's not for equestrian, is it? I'm just kidding.
No, you guys. Here's Will Muschamp talking about Missouri and the status of its starting quarterback, Jake Bentley.
We're looking forward to Saturday, obviously playing Missouri here at Williams-Brice Stadium. Noon kickoff. We need our crowd to be there and be loud. They do a lot at the line of scrimmage. They got a good football team, but we need to be out in full force, and I know our players will appreciate it. I know our fans will be excited about getting us back home. They got a really good offensive football team. Drew Lock can make all of the throws. When we faced him the last 2 years, he was an outstanding player. Really good skill people around him at the running back position. Crockett and Roundtree and Beatty are all really good players. Speed on the edges. Hall and Johnson and Brown are guys that really can run vertical and change the direction and change the complexion of a game quickly. And then the two tight ends are 6'6", 250, 260, and run and have ball skills. I think both guys play on the basketball team where they should if they're not. But they're really good athletes. 4 out of 5 guys back on the offensive line. Derek Dooley's our offensive coordinator, is new to this year, but it's done a really nice job of tying in some run game with them, which they ran the ball with Josh last year, but they're a little more committed to me and still playing with a high tempo offensively. Defensively, Barry's a defensive head coach. It all starts up front with Terry Beckner. I've known Terry. I recruited Terry when I was at Auburn. He's a really good football player, very disruptive, but that's the way they play up front. They're very disruptive in the front and movement and different things they create for you. They do a really nice job there. Garrett's a really good linebacker. Brandon Lee flashes to me at Sam linebacker. They got a solid secondary and good on special teams. So we need to play well. Injury report for us: Eldridge Thompson with the shoulders, probably questionable. Practice today, but I don't know that he could be in a full contact situation. I'll know more probably tomorrow and Thursday, obviously moving forward. Jemias Williams has his shoulders probable. He did practice today. But I want to see, how he handles some contact. He was in a non-contact situation. Jake Bentley with the knee is probable. He practiced today. He had to get treatment today and had class after that. So I apologize he wasn't able to meet with you guys. Jacob August is going through the concussion protocol right now. I don't really have an update on that at this time. Brian Edwards practiced today is probable with an ankle, but moved around. We'll see how much more he can do tomorrow. JT Ebay is out. Nothing serious, but I don't think we'll get him back till probably after the open week with a sprained knee. Or Trey Smith's having surgery on Friday, so he'll be out for the season. Josh Belt continues to have an ankle, and DJ Warnham I still think we'll get back after the open week, and that's kind of where we are. We need to, as a team, do the simple things better. Bottom line, whether it's catching the football, whether it's holding on to the ball, gap control defensively. That's really the emphasis to me with our football team. Let's do simple better, and that's where we are, and I'll open up for any questions.
Well, looking at Jake, was he able to move around pretty well today? I mean, no concerns at all with the knee?
Well, no, he's still sore. But again, it's a long time till Saturday, and I think he'll be fine.
Outside of injury, do you and your team have confidence in Jake Bentley as
Absolutely.
the starter?
100%. What
gives you that confidence?
The way he commands our offense, the way he played. Didn't play well the other night. We didn't throw and catch it very well versus Kentucky. We'll call it like it is. It wasn't all on him, and at the end of the day, our football team, our players, myself, have 110% confidence in Jake and how he'll perform Saturday.
That's Will Muschamp. And again, being very evasive about whether or not the quarterback is going to play. You have to go in there assuming he's going to be somewhat short of 100%, I would say. Even with a knee injury, giving him a whole week, say he doesn't practice or practices in limited fashion, it's probably going to be a limited situation. And this is a game where you thought – maybe South Carolina, if its offense was up to snuff, could turn this into a shootout against Missouri, especially because of their high-powered offense. But it's one where I think you could be walking into a precarious situation if you don't get the same kind of defensive performance like you did a year ago against them.
Well, I think if you got Jake in there at quarterback, offensive line had better be solid because typically Missouri has really good pass rushing defensive ends.
And Terry Beckner is that big presence.
Exactly.
They love to stunt him.
Exactly. So the tackles, the offensive line is going to be on its best to protect him because if his mobility is hampered, this isn't Aaron Rodgers back there running around on one leg who can get away with it. Jake needs to have the time to set up and control his feet and get his shoulders squared and make a good throw. Otherwise, it could be a problem.
And you better have some deception going on. In other words, show the screen, but throw it to the other side of the field. And when they least expect it, because Missouri, because they have that sick'em attitude up front, they have always been susceptible to the screen.
Oh, they over pursue like nobody's business. That's the one thing you have to do with them is you have to kind of trick them in the head. That's the one thing that you'll get them off their schedule in is if you trick them in the head and they over pursue. But South Carolina can't get too cute. They need to be able to go downhill, run the football, show some sort of balance, and for God's sakes, can you use Deebo Samuel a little bit more, please?
Got to catch the ball.
I know.
I mean, he dropped one. He did make really a good catch for that touchdown.
That was a busted play.
Well,
but he made a good catch.
It was a busted play.
But he made a good catch.
Yeah, I know he made a good
nothing
catch.
to do with it. They busted coverage, but he made a terrific catch and run afterwards. All right, we'll come back and continue with your phone calls. More from Sweeney and Muschamp and recruiting coming up on a Talking Tuesday.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
There's a cutesy little bet going on now between Steve Spurrier and Les Miles, Florida LSU this weekend. Apparently, if Florida wins, Les has got to wear one of Steve's visors, and if LSU wins, Spurrier's got to eat some grass, a la Les Miles.
Interesting.
Interesting little side bet there between those two for that game this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of good games between the ACC and the SEC this weekend. In fact, the entire ACC is playing within the league this weekend. First time all season, I think we've had that arrangement for
Correct.
the ACC. And most of the SEC is playing within the league. I think maybe a game or two outside the league. So we're getting to that point where we're going to have mostly league games until the last weekend before rivalry weekend. 800-956-7266. Back to your phone calls on the Talking Tuesday. More from Sweeney and Muschamp coming up. We go to Hank in Columbia. Welcome, Hank. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Corn. I was calling in just for the last couple of days. I've heard a couple of times where, I guess you and I can't change. I wouldn't want to change your mind. Everybody's going to have their opinion. I just wanted to call in and say I just don't see Kelly Bryant's situation, him being a quitter. I mean, I think he made a decision, from my standpoint, I think he made a decision about trying to play a year that he would get, to play a full year and know he could play the full year. And because he graduated, he decided to do that. I think if he made a decision and Dabo made a decision, I respect both of them. But I don't care who wants to say it. I don't call him a quitter because at the end of this year, there are going to be a number of coaches who, when some of these coaches get run off, are going to have the opportunity to move to a better position, a better
but what was the key word?
Position.
What was the key word you just said at the end of the year? And I know that.
I'm talking about before. No, I'm talking about before bowl games. Now these coaches get right on the road before bowl games.
Right.
It's a whole month out. It's not the end of the year for a number of them. And I've heard you speak about them before.
Yeah.
So those coaches, I wouldn't call those coaches quitters. You say coach has to make a decision. He has to make a decision because yes, some things happen there. But those things might not have happened if the official blew a whistle and Lawrence didn't run out of bounds and feel like he's trying to run back inbounds to get blown up. So if you're a person that's graduated and you stayed there and you waited your time, if you decide that you're not going to kind of hold the clipboard for the rest of the season on the off chance because you have the position that you graduated and you can leave out and go and get a full year playing, then that's your decision, especially when they've already made it known to you that they want to, what they think for their long term is to move forward. That's why I say I respect both of them. I can't think this thing, well, he quit on them because he never lost to the point where they said, we got to pull you. And it's not the same as a Hurt situation because Hurt also has another year. But at the time that, I'm sure Tua didn't get good just in the second half of the championship game. I'm sure he was pretty good all year long.
Well, listen, and thanks for your call. I can't bring myself to the point where the inmates run the asylum when it comes to college sports, for that matter, to professional sports. Coaches coach and players play. Coaches have to make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the team. And that's how they decide who starts at right tackle and who starts at quarterback. Sometimes those are painful decisions, and it's going to hurt somebody's feelings. A player now with today's college rules, if they're in the right situation academically, has that opportunity and has that option to think about himself and try and go somewhere else and play another year, which is Kelly's option here. Personally, I have a hard time with a player quitting on his team midseason. And yes, it's quitting on his team midseason, knowing that as a quarterback or at any position, as we saw Saturday, you're a snap away or a bad performance away from being right back in there. I listen, I don't know Kelly Bryant personally. Everybody from his high school coaches and teammates to others swear by him and think he's a great guy, and I'm sure that he is. He's been nothing but great with the media in our meetings with him, so I have nothing to say negatively about that. But if you today's athlete, I don't know if it's because of what they see on the professional ranks or the way they were coddled coming up in high school now through the recruiting process, that they think the whole world revolves around them. If you don't take care of the team business first ahead of yourself, you're bound to fail. And just because you're transferring and going to go somewhere else doesn't mean you're going to find happiness.
I'll say this, and we are conditioned by the way that this world is now to think everything is black or white or red or green, you know, that kind of thing. There are no gray areas in sync. I think it is possible to think three different things. I think it's possible to think that Dabo Swinney made the decision that was best for his football team. I think it's possible to say that Kelly Bryant made the best decision for him and his future. And I think it's also okay for you as a Clemson fan to be kind of angry about that decision. I think you can be all three of those things. All three of those things can be true.
You missed one.
What's the fourth?
The fourth is this. Kelly Bryant is upset because the guy is taking his starting position. Well, guess what? If Kelly Bryant transfers to a school that says you're going to start, they're going to have to sit somebody that thought they had their position.
Well, that's the thing. There's no guarantee that you're going to go somewhere. Look at what Malik Zaire left at Notre Dame. He left a situation where he was basically a part-time quarterback to go to Florida where he thought he was going to start, and he couldn't even get on the field.
No, there's been several documented cases. Now, there are some situations where it works out just fine. The LSU quarterback,
Joe Burrow,
working out just fine for him. Russell Wilson, certainly there are cases.
Well, Russell Wilson was runoff.
But, you know, you wonder about Kelly Bryant in the years to come. One thing about the Clemson football program, its culture and the family of Clemson football, they welcome their former players back. Even Zarek Cooper was welcomed back at the spring game to get his, I guess it was an ACC championship ring,
yes.
Even though he had already transferred to Jacksonville State. Is Kelly Bryant, an ACC championship quarterback for Clemson, going to be welcomed back in years to come when they want to recognize that team? Are the fans going to forgive? We'll have to wait and see. I still think it's wrong to walk out on your team, period. I can't accept it. That's just me. I just can't accept it. David, there's something to be said about loyalty. I think loyalty trumps most everything, if you ask me. I got your back. You got my back. That's just my opinion. David and Andrews, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, how y'all doing today?
We're good, David.
Hey, I've been around a little while, and I've watched a lot of football over the years, and it's been my thought process that when teams don't show up for big games, a lot of that falls back on the coaching staff, and particular the head coach. But, you know, I'm not hearing any of that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, it's everything. It's coaching, and it's and coaches have to do their job. They felt like they had a good game plan, especially they thought they had a good defensive game plan in the first half against Kentucky. And for whatever reason, the players didn't do what they apparently were coached to do in the first half. In the second half, Muschamp said they did nothing different. They made no major adjustments at halftime.
This is not on the
players
staff.
just went out and did what they were supposed to do.
This is not on the coaching staff. This is at the end of the day, at some point, it's got to come down to the fact that the players on the field have to play. If the players don't play, it is on them. It is not on the coaching staff.
I'm trying to think whether any coaches' decisions during that game Saturday that hurt the Gamecocks.
No.
Did they do anything?
No. Both pro and I are saying no.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I don't trust either one of you. I'm just thinking.
I'm saying no.
You're not a team
they
player,
actually,
you don't
they went for it on fourth down. Was that in the fourth quarter? I think it was.
Yes.
Deep in their territory. Had they not made it, that would have killed the game.
But they got it.
They got it. Some said it was stupid to do it, but they were fortunate to get it.
What they
it was
need,
that 21-play drive where they didn't score.
What they need, and I don't think has been identified, is they don't have anybody to light a fire in that locker room like a DJ Swearinger would used to get in everybody's face when they weren't playing.
Wondering if they're missing Sky Moore.
Do we know this? Do we know that there's no fire in the locker room? Is that what it is?
Did you see it on the field?
Well, I was in the locker room, though. All right. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Talking Tuesday from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, Brian Leonard, 800-956-7266. The website, SportsTalkSC.com. Make sure you check that out regularly. You can catch our feed there. And on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Get our feed there as well. Our Twitter feed, our Periscope, kind of acts like a what do you call it? A
spy camera.
No. Geez, why's my brain going blank? Well, because I've been driving all day. A podcast. There we go. It sort of acts as our podcast for you.
De facto
podcast. You want to catch a show that you missed, you can go to our website and go to our YouTube channel, Sports Talk SC on YouTube, or you can go to the Twitter, go to Periscope and pull it up that way. Follow us on Periscope, just like you do on Twitter. You can go right to our previous shows or our live show. 800-956-7266. Recruiting coming up. More from Sweeney and Muschamp on this Talking Tuesday. But let's go to Tanner and Rock Hill next up on the program. Hey, Tanner.
How y'all doing today?
Good.
I just want to say I kind of agree with the first caller. I think a lot of Carolina's offensive problems is the quarterback. I mean, I think Jake's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think we need a dual threat quarterback, somebody that can run and throw and really open up the offense. I mean, he's inconsistent. He just makes dumb decisions. He's a junior. He shouldn't be doing that. Well, and I was hoping if you guys could tell me if Holinsky's coming in January or not.
Let me check on that in my notes, and I'll tell you if I've got him down as an early grad. As far as what you're saying, I don't disagree about he is an early grad. Yes, he'll be in January. He signs in December. He graduates early. The lack of a running threat from your quarterback is big.
Right.
Now, Clemson's going to deal with the same thing. They lose that element of their offense to a large degree with Trevor Lawrence. Would we all agree with that? They're not going to run Trevor Lawrence like Kelly Bryant would run.
Not that they would run him that way, but he's still a threat to run. He's a threat to take off. I wouldn't say he's one that you necessarily do a lot of design runs with.
I would think that his inches and height just about is equal to a guy that can run because he sees passing lanes that other guys can't see.
Well, he's so tall.
Yeah, exactly.
And because of that, that takes people out of the box in order to make sure that you can run. That's the one thing that people don't understand about where Clemson's offense was limited with Kelly Bryant. Trevor Lawrence opens up an entirely different window, 25-plus yards down the field that defenses have to account for. And because of that, that takes defenders out of the box and allows Clemson to actually effectively run the football, which they could not do last year.
Yeah. The number of big plays that I mentioned earlier, it's in Clemson's game notes this week. It's pretty remarkable. And Dabo Sweeney made a point of bringing it up today, saying that it would be an all-time record for Clemson with their average per snap being, I think it's 7.8 yards per snap. That has them, here we go, explosive plays. That has them among the nation's best. They're 13th in the country in yards per play at 7.03. Oklahoma leads at 8.9 yards per play. Alabama's next at 8.23. Then Memphis is third. Appalachian State is fourth. West Virginia is fifth. So explosive plays, chunk plays have been a real big part of Clemson's offense. The number 2 year in terms of yards per play was a 2016 that averaged 6.5 yards per play. To James and Rock Hill, next up on the program. Hey, James.
What's going on, guys? How we doing tonight?
We're great. Great.
I just wanted to say two things. One, I think I'm a Clemson fan, but I'm not a mean Clemson fan. I think
you're not a mean Clemson fan.
No, I don't think so. I'm not one of those ones that bashes on Twitter or anything. I'm kind of the one that just is quiet and just sees what he sees. And
you're kind of humble. You're kind of humble is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know
win and go home.
But, I think Carolina's a pretty good football team. I think that their biggest problem right now is just depth, and that'll just come with recruiting. But, Saturday, that's just – I don't really know what you want to call Saturday. That's not Carolina, but
inexcusable.
Like against Georgia, I think depth was a problem against Georgia. I think Georgia just was deeper, especially like in the second half when they kind of pulled away. And another thing that I wanted to say is I went to Clemson, obviously, and I have some friends that are on the football staff, and then I have some friends that are actually on the athletic department staff. And from some very good sources, no coaches, no faculty, no staff knew anything about it, but some players put together a little, somewhat of a party for Kelly Bryant on Thursday evening. And just his friends and teammates just basically saying thank you. And he didn't show up.
He didn't show up.
Should tell you he did not show up.
Are you serious?
So that is correct.
Huh.
So that should kind of tell you what Kelly Bryant's mentality is. I don't hold that against him. You know, if he's moving on, that's good for him. Like I said, I wish nothing but the best for him. But just all these people that are like, let's bring Kelly back. Kelly's moving on. We all just need to move on. Let's move on.
It's interesting. That's
let's
first I've heard of
Y'all
that.
have a good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That's first we've heard of that. Have you seen that anywhere?
I have not seen that anywhere. Well, again, it's funny how a lot of that changed, and it seemed like as the week went on, Dabo Swinney kind of turned more sour when the subject of Kelly got brought up, basically to the point on Saturday and Sunday where he was just basically like, I'm not talking about him anymore. So, I mean,
until Marty Smith gets here.
Well, I'm just saying, to me, it seems like they were.
They're going to have an interview with Dabo talking about Kelly Bryant. You mark my words. They might even have Kelly Bryant in the interview. I'm just wondering if they're going to have piano music playing in the background.
The thing about it is you almost think that because there's such a frequent flyer on ABC and ESPN, I was shocked that Dabo came on Stephen A. Smith's show to talk about it.
Well, the weird thing, too, again, is just, the thing that got me almost kind of weirded out was when Holly Rose said on the sideline, would you welcome Kelly Bryant back? This is after Trevor got hurt. And he said, yeah, I'd welcome him back. And, like, why are you giving that answer at that point in time? That seemed odd.
When did he say that?
It's halftime, coming off of the field.
I listened to that interview. I don't remember that being in the interview.
That was basically from what people had said.
I don't think that's. I think she tweeted that out after the game from somewhere else. I saw that. I went back and listened to the halftime interview and the postgame interview, and that question was not asked in either one of those interviews.
Maybe it was asked off air. I'm not sure.
It might have been off air. It might have been from behind the scenes. But I did not hear it either one. Maybe if anybody heard that on the broadcast, I didn't hear it.
And I was there, so I didn't.
Right.
No,
I went back and listened.
I heard her when they came back from halftime. When you say we were talking to the coaches, I heard her say he said that.
Okay, that's where it was.
So
I did not hear that part. I did not hear that part.
So Perry Mason would say objection, hearsay.
Yeah.
Leading the witness.
Quickly, we go to
Alex.
Alex in Myrtle Beach. Hello, Alex. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. I know you're the recruiting guru. I don't know if you heard the story about Will Muschamp's son, for Hammond, and then after he played First Baptist, he said you should recruit this football player from First Baptist.
Yeah,
I'm here actually in west side. I'm on the other side of Intercoastal Waterway out here in the country. He's got some mosquitoes he should recruit.
I know.
They are no joke.
But they are recruiting that running back. They are recruiting the kid from First Baptist.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got some fierce mosquitoes out here. But if I may quickly talk about I'm a Gamecock fan, but if anybody didn't see the Clemson game, I watched it. Listen, that game in the fourth quarter was, I think they had 4th and 10 with like 3 minutes to go. And listen, they went out there and they earned it. And about the Kelly Bryant situation quickly, and I was calling before the season about this. I said, we'll play 2 quarterbacks. But during that, like, listen, how can they keep Kelly Bryant? And I agree with you and Mr. Pelagic. And then, of course, then the pros say, hey, we go to another school. And that's the third point. You know what? You're cooking someone else out of their starting position. But I have a fourth point. Dabo Swinney gave Kelly Bryant an opportunity to stay with the team.
All right, we got to hit a break. Got to hit a break. We'll come back to you, give you recruiting and more.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports Talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
More from Talking Tuesday coming up here as we continue on Sports Talk. More to get to from Sweeney and Muschamp, but we have to get to recruiting. We're overdue for some recruiting. So
let's don't be tardy when it comes to recruiting.
Corn will avail us of tonight's recruiting.
All right, here we go. Safety Dedrick Holmes of Evans, Georgia, has been a frequent visitor to USC. He would like to make Williams-Brice his next home field. The Gamecocks and Auburn are his two favorites, and if he has his druthers, he'll be joining the Gamecocks in the future. Visited USC in March for a spring practice, in June for a camp session, last month for the Georgia game. The two sides have gotten to know each other well, with Travaris Robinson in regular contact. Holmes also has talked with Will Muschamp. The Gamecocks offered in July. Holmes believes it's a committable offer based off of his conversations. He talked to Travaris Robinson 2 days ago. They want him in for Saturday's game, and he plans to be there. He said, I told him I wanted to commit, but I want to take recruiting pictures first. You know, those pictures they take when they're on their visits?
We call them edits.
Yes. He plans to do that on Saturday as far as those pictures. So he said it's a good chance, it's a high chance of a commitment this Saturday. Now, point of contention here, or point of order, or point. We all remember what happened with Trey Wilkins back in the summer. I'm not stepping into that mess again. I asked him repeatedly, and I told him about that scenario. I said, I'm doing you a favor by asking you to clarify for me, do you have a committable offer? And he repeatedly said yes.
Okay.
Of course, I think Trey Wilkins thought that too back when he went through his little saga. So anyway.
Do you have a committable offer?
Do you have a committable offer?
But he didn't hear from the Grand Poobah.
This young man says he's talked to Muschamp. He said, Muschamp, he said, I've seen him in person. I talked to him. He said, I'm a good ball hawk, have great vision on the field. A lot of the same things that Coach T-Rob was saying. He said they really like my film. Auburn and Georgia Tech have also been talking with Holmes, and both have invited him for unofficial visits. He'll be joined on the visit by his grandfather, one of his coaches, and two teammates. He plans to arrive a couple hours for kickoff. Hopes to have the chance to talk with the coaches following the game.
Levitation Holmes.
He led the state of Georgia in picks last season with 9.
Very nice.
USC offered 2020 corner De'Air McDonald of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. He was at Louisville last weekend, has a Louisville offer too. 2020 offensive lineman Paul Chio of Milton, Georgia, told rivals he's down to Clemson, Georgia, Alabama. We'll decide soon. He was at Clemson Saturday. We'll go to Georgia this weekend, Alabama the following weekend. 2020 linebacker Devin Curtis of Brentwood, Tennessee, was at Clemson Saturday. He's also been to USC and Purdue. In basketball, 6-foot Joel Brown of Ontario committed to Cal. Clemson was one of his final 4, though he never visited Clemson. And 2020 forward Andrew Thomas of Smyrna, Georgia, he's about 6'6". He visited Clemson on Saturday and is just starting to perhaps develop a relationship with the Tigers.
I thought I had a feeling that the Cal coach out there, the basketball coach, was on the hot seat. Maybe I was wrong.
Who is that?
Guy who replaced Conzo Martin.
Yes. Who's now where?
Missouri.
Missouri. Oh, the old Missouri River.
Always comes
she
back.
Flows over her banks.
Stop
oh,
it.
Drew Lock.
Stop it.
He really can stank.
You're really bad.
Who's better, Drew Lock or Matty Mock?
Drew Lock by a country mile.
Yeah.
Who's better, Drew Lock or Brad Gilbert?
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock?
But
is Drew Lock the greatest quarterback in the history of Missouri football?
No, Chase Daniel is.
Chase Daniel is.
Yeah.
He knows everybody that played at Missouri.
Well,
do you remember when Dan Devine coached at Missouri?
I was not alive when Dan Devine coached.
Did he shoot his dog at Missouri? Was that somewhere else?
Somewhere else.
No, I was in Green Bay.
Oh, somebody shot his dog.
Shot his dog at Green Bay. And that's when one of the announcers got fired because he couldn't think of anything. The guy said, you know some fan shot Dad Devine's dog. And he said, well, they love their football.
The Devines are mad about the way they're portrayed in the movie Rudy. You know that, right? Because they basically portrayed Dan Devine as a bad guy in the movie Rudy.
Yeah.
In reality, it didn't play out that way.
Yeah.
They were very, very mad about that.
Well, here's the key point, though. Drew's name is Lock. But everybody says that Lawrence has the best locks.
Well, lock is key for Missouri to
Or
win.
is it a lock for Missouri on Saturday in Columbia?
Lock is a key for Missouri to win.
Or is it going to be locks and bagel for the Gamecocks defense?
Not quite.
And cheese.
But we're talking about Clemson.
We are. Here is more of Dabo Swinney from today talking about Trevor Lawrence and how they're going to certainly work with him to learn how to get down and avoid the big hit.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, we run our quarterbacks. That's what we do. So our quarterbacks have to be a part of it. But yeah, you got to be smart, and we coach him to be smart. And he's a young player, and that wasn't very smart. He was out of control, and just I love his effort, but there's a time for that, and then there's a time to let's live for another play. And so he just got to, because he can run. Trevor can move. He can navigate the pocket very well, and I think as we continue to watch him grow, that's one of his best attributes is his ability. I mean, the one that he scrambled on, that was a scramble. They went 2-man on us on first down, and he recognized it. He let the pass lane set. He knows that they got nobody for him, and he made a nice little 8-yard gain. Got down. It's now 2nd and 2. And that's what good quarterbacks do. You got great recognition that way, and he's got the ability to make you pay if you give him some of those advantageous opportunities to run. And then he can extend plays, but that was a breakdown in the play. He's expecting protection, and we didn't set the edge the way we needed to, and it gets it just was a bad decision on his part. So yeah, he'll learn from it moving forward.
Was it more of a concussion issue or a neck issue after you had a chance to evaluate?
They felt more of a neck issue. It was kind of he got crap knocked out of him, and so I mean it was head and neck, and like I said, when he had some pain, and they have a whole protocol of all that stuff, and I mean it's you get put in concussion protocol, for anything that creates a symptom. It's just not something that you mess with. And so, I mean, like I said, told you all the day, he wanted to come back and play the second half, but just don't know. So they did not feel comfortable, especially with what the pain he was having in his neck. And but he really responded well after the game, and they put him in the protocol, and they have all there's a metrics or whatever. I have no idea what they do, but he was really good Sunday, and then same thing yesterday. Came in and worked out Monday morning, and looked good last night.
What was your assessment of how he played before?
Played well. He played well. He was 60-something% completion. I don't remember exactly, but I want to say he was. I don't know, what was he, maybe 10 or 15 or something like that, or maybe a few more attempts than that. But 12 or 17 or something like that. But he had a good game. He missed a couple throws that he would have liked to have had back. I think he was just a little amped up, but he did a nice job. We had the one screw up on the exchange, which was costly. But I think he got good experience and kind of got that first start out of the way too, and all the stuff with that. I think he's in a good spot, and Bryce as well. So it worked out well in the end.
Okay, Dabo Swinney from his press conference earlier today. We'll hear more from Will Muschamp coming up. Also, Kerry Tharp coming up to talk NASCAR with us after what I thought was a great race on the Roval at Charlotte. We'll get his take on that coming up. So, Clemson going to Wake Forest, and, the Tigers have won 9 in a row over the Demon Deacons. This is, it's maybe a good Wake Forest team. They'll have some pretty pieces on offense. There's no question about it. The young quarterback's going to be really, really good for them. He's already off to a terrific start in his career. Their regular starter, their expected starter went down in the preseason, I think it was, and Sam Hartman stepped in, and he got off to a really good start. And he's run their offense. They are a run-heavy offense, but they have a quarterback who can throw it. And in Dortch, they've got, the leading receiver in the ACC right now. 11 catches last week.
Got to figure out a way to stop him, but I do not think they will have nearly as much trouble as they did last week on defense. We'll come back. We'll do some NASCAR when we come back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
We're back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as we continue on a Tuesday. It is that time where we usually get ourselves ready for the NASCAR week that was and look back on the NASCAR weekend with Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington Raceway, and our first ever playoff Roval race. You would say, Corn, a success?
I would say so. Let's see what Kerry Tharp, president of Darlington, has to say. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more exciting finish. A typical road course where you have at least two guys battling it out at the end. You had that big wreck towards the end and kind of all and set it all up. But I mean, so much riding on it too, Kerry, with every position move maybe affecting the guys trying to advancing the playoffs and knocking some guys out. I don't think NASCAR could have asked for a better race.
I agree with you, Phil. And it was a very exciting race. It had a lot of drama to the playoffs. It was a cutoff race, and so there was a lot at stake. And we certainly saw that unfold there at the end when Jimmy Johnson was going for the win and wrecked into Martin Truex Jr. And Jimmy wound up being tied for the last transfer spot, and due to the fact that he didn't have as good of finishes in the first 3 races compared to Kyle Larson and Eric Almirola, he stays behind, so he doesn't advance. But, you know, a lot on the line, a lot of drama, a lot of excitement. I thought all in all, it was a very well conceived idea by the folks at SMI and Charlotte Motor Speedway, and I thought it came off extremely well.
Yeah, if you're a race fan, you really have to give Jimmy Johnson a pat on the back because he didn't let off the gas and just kind of glide in there, protecting his position in the playoff. I mean, that might have been obviously the smart thing, and maybe if he wasn't a 7-time champion, maybe if he was going for his first, but he's got money in the bank, so you know he went for it, and that made for great racing.
There's no question, Phil. I mean, here's a guy who's won 7 championships and, you know, more than 80 races. He's in the Hall of Fame. He'll be on the Mount Rushmore in NASCAR when it's all said and done. But, you know, he saw the chance that he could get a win. He hasn't been to victory lane in well over a year, so he's hungry. And he's just like any Saturday night racer. If he's got a chance to win, he's going to go for it. I got to commend him for that. I know right now he's probably kicking himself on it, thinking, you know, all I needed to do was finish second. I'd be in the continue in the playoffs. But you know what? At the end of the day, he's a competitor. He wants to win, and I think that's what we saw Sunday out of Jimmy Johnson.
So we sit here now, KT, as we look here for the last 7 races. We got a couple of super speedways left, a couple of intermediate tracks, and then a couple of these short tracks starting this week with Dover, the Monster Mile. This is obviously kind of that nitty-gritty. We talk about this a lot where there's not a lot of traffic around, and this is kind of where things start to get a little personal, I would say.
Absolutely. When you get down to 12, I mean, these are the drivers. You know, they're gonna compete now for the next round, and so, like you said, you go to Dover, Delaware. It's the Monster Mile. It's a very tight, compact, concrete jungle, is what I would call it. It's like being in a spinning bottle. There's not a whole lot of room for air there. It's very tight quarters, confined, and you can get into some real trouble at Dover if you're not careful. So I think it's a good place to start the next round. I think you're going to see, you know, the guys like Truex, Kyle Busch is very good there at Dover. Kevin Harvick has figured it out over the last 7 years, and so it's going to be it's a great place, I think, to start the second round, to be honest with you, Will, because I think it lends itself to some really hard racing, and you know, you can wad up your car very, very easily if you're not careful.
Jimmy Johnson out. Martin Truex Jr. Still on the road to defending his title. You got Kevin Harvick, who I think probably led the NASCAR world in second place finishes the last two years. And you got Kyle Busch. A bunch of storylines to be written before this thing is over.
No question, Tom. You know, you've got all those that you mentioned, and you know, you got Kyle Larson kind of lurking back there. He's a guy that's knocked on the door. Been so close all year long, and I think he's kind of a guy that's kind of lying out there in the weeds, so to speak. Let's not forget Brad Keselowski, who peeled off 4 victories in a row here not too long ago, and so I think we're getting kind of now to the nitty gritty. It's almost like now we're in the round of 32. If you're looking at the basketball tournament, you know, you advance, you win in advance, and so. You get right now down to these 3 racetracks that we're facing right now. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. I think there's going to be some chances taken. You know, there could be some surprises along the way. I mean, Eric Almirola is a guy that's, you know, he's kind of sneaky out there. He's pretty good at Dover too. So, you know, don't underestimate some of these other guys that are out there and that have made to the next round of the playoffs. So. I think it's going to be very, very interesting these next 3 weeks.
I got to believe the Dirty Dozen that move forward are happy that Jimmy Johnson is out. especially with Dover coming up. He's won 11 times there. So if Johnson had made the 12, going to Dover, considering how well he's run there over the years, you got to figure great chance for him to win. Go ahead and get himself into the next round.
You make a great point, Phil. I mean, he has owned Dover. That track in Martinsville have probably been his most where he's got most of his wins over the last few years. And so, now Jimmy Johnson's not a factor the rest of the way when it comes to winning and advancing. And so I think that does take some of the pressure off some of these guys that are still in contention. And, they figure, you know what, it's okay if Jimmy Johnson if he does win, I just have to have a good finish. And so, we'll see how that all plays out and see how it stacks up on Sunday. But, I think that the rest of the way is going to be pretty interesting. And again, I want to go back and commend the folks up at Charlotte. I thought they did a great job at the Roval. That was very interesting. Anytime you get people talking about your race, and they talk about Darlington several days after, that's what you want.
Well, because you have great finishes there and a lot of action. One more thing about Dover, the concrete there compared to the asphalt at most tracks, the wear on the tires, is it easier on the tires, that concrete, or does it eat into those tires quicker?
It eats into those tires just as quick as it would it say at a Bristol. That's an interesting racetrack. I mean, it's right next to a casino. It's right next to a horse track. It's just jammed in there, and it's a survival of the fittest. It's almost like being in a mini gladiator bowl, and you have to be very, very well conditioned to come out of there. It's a very strenuous race. There's a lot of beating and banging, and it's a race that you need to be well conditioned. And so I think it's just as equal on the tires there, Phil, but on the concrete as it is on some of the asphalt tracks.
KT, as always, we thank you for your time. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, appreciate it, guys.
You got it. Kerry Tharp here on Sports Talk, giving us some presidential moments from the president of Darlington. Time for tonight's high school football reports.
It is brought to you by the fine folks at Farm Bureau Insurance, who sponsors the South Carolina High School Sports Report. Farm Bureau Insurance with Fave Rates. You can get yourself online at favrates.com. With South Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance, get all of your favorite things like competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service for all your auto, home, and life insurance needs. Get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com with Farm Bureau Insurance.
All right, let's look at the rankings from the high school sports report for this week. It is Dutch Fork at number 1 in 5A, followed by Fort Dorchester, Dorman, Berkeley, and Burns. And let's see, I believe it's Fort D and Berkeley playing this week, right?
You are correct.
Sumter, TL Hanna, Gaffney, River Bluff, and Lexington, your top 10. In 4A, Hartsville, South Point, Myrtle Beach, Greer, Walhalla, Daniel, Wren, Marlboro County, North Myrtle Beach, and BHP. The question is, man, Myrtle and North Myrtle being off for so long, what are they going to be like when they come back?
Should be interesting.
In 3A, it's Dillon, Chapman, Chester, Woodruff, Camden. May River has come on and had a great year. Manning, Wade Hampton of Hampton, Gilbert, and Strom Thurmond. In 2A, of course, Abbeville leads the way, followed by Barnwell, Bamberg, Earhart, Carvers Bay, and Andrews. 96 is 6th, followed by Landrum, Woodland, Hannah, Pamplico, and Timberland. And in 1A, it's Lamar, number 1, followed by Lakeview, Wagner, Sally, St. John's, Hemingway. Then it's Simmonsville, Dixie, C.E. Murray, Baptist Hill, and Branchville. By the way, I know most of you want to know this. Latta is 16th in 2A.
How about my 96ers still undefeated? Still undefeated.
Your 96ers.
My 96ers.
Yep. We'll be back.
More.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
800-956-7266. We know we still got a couple people on hold. Hold on for us, because in the interest of equal time and in the interest of equal interest, we do have some South Carolina sound for you from Will Muschamp. One of the biggest bugaboos from South Carolina's perspective against Kentucky was the lack of discipline and composure, especially on defense, something that Will Muschamp addressed in his press conference earlier today.
Well, I think that there's an obvious line. We were the least penalized team in the Southeastern Conference a year ago. So, and we played really intense football. And when you self-inflict wounds such as unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, we're not going to tolerate it. It's been addressed. If I'm in a situation where I can sub and get you out of the game, unfortunately, we're very thin in some spots. So I have a hard time subbing. I don't want to penalize our entire football team because a guy makes a really poor decision, but it's being addressed. And we have discipline in our organization. There was 11 penalties on the other side of the ball too on Saturday. There's 22 total penalties. And so, I'm not tolerating it at all. It hurt our football team in some really critical situations, and as much as anything, the hidden yardage as far as flipping the field on some things that really, really hurt us in the game. But, again, we're the least penalized team in the SEC a year ago, and we've got discipline in our organization.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to ask you, JC makes the penalty, and about your leadership on that. Immediately, Javon grabs him, and Keir Thomas practically punches him in the face. Was that good for you to see?
Well, again, they know how we need to respond. And JC's a freshman. He made a mistake. He got you know what? At the end of the day, he's really excited about playing for South Carolina, and we step over the line sometimes. I would rather say whoa than giddy up. And with JC Horn, I have to say that a lot, which is an awesome thing to be able to say. I wish we had more, to be honest with you. Because really good players I've been around, you had to say that a lot. A lot. You had to pull them back. You had to pull them off the field at times. It's a good defense I've been around. You had to do it a bunch. It's really fun. Really fun. And we'll get there.
After 4 games, well, overall, how do you like your team's tackling fundamentals, as in going for the waist, going for the legs, and trying not to go up top?
I think it could be better. I think if you just had to say defensively, we've been inconsistent in the run game, and I think tackling is part of that, and gap control is part of that. Those two things would jump out at you. Turnovers, not only having 4 after 4 games, as much time as we spend on it, as effective as we've been, is obviously disappointing. Our first down efficiency has not been very good. We need to be at 60%, 2nd, 7+, and we're right at about 48, 50, which is generally you're going to create, behind the sticks a lot. Although we have been very good, productive on 3rd down. Offensively, got 9 turnovers. It's hard to win. It's hard to win on the road against a good team with 4. Very difficult, and putting yourself in those situations and putting the ball in jeopardy as much. Disappointed, obviously, in the running game against Georgia and the throwing game against Kentucky. Just far too inconsistent to be successful.
I do also want to say this, just as a point of emphasis. Just because the carry-on Joyner did some work with the ones today does not mean that he's getting in.
Yeah,
this week.
You got to have another quarterback ready. And you got to have a package ready in case you do need him. Back to the phones we go here in our final minutes on Sports Talk on this Talking Tuesday. It's Mark in Aiken. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hey, Phil. Doing great, guys. Listen, right quick. I think Dabo let it be known Saturday that that was a team effort, and I think he stressed that word team for obvious reasons. And the way I look at it, him and every other coach, and, they're hired to win games and championships, not to coddle players. And at the end of the day, they're not going to be judged on how many players go to the NFL. They're going to be judged on what they did for their job. And that's winning games and winning championships. And if you're going to be a leader, and the quarterback is a leader position, although when on a whole roster, there's no more important than the right guard, left tackle, what have you. But that is a leadership position. And if you're going to be a leader, you got to put those other guys. You got to put the other guys ahead of yourself, and then that's the way I look at it. It's time to move on and hope for the best for the rest of the season. Thanks a lot for the phone call.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, that's what you have to do. I mean, Dabo has shut it down in terms of talking about Kelly Bryant. We'll see if I've sort of been halfway joking, but I'm halfway or more than halfway serious. I think Marty Smith was there today to do an interview about last week and the departure of Kelly Bryant and the situation where Chase Bryce had to come in for Trevor Lawrence and also Trevor Lawrence, but we'll see how much Dabo talks about that.
I think he was getting Dabo's mom's dumpling recipe, honestly.
Was that what it was?
For the Marty and McGee extravaganza.
On the personal side, if you ask me. Let's go to
that's the kind of guy he is. He's
Cale. Cale in Somerville. You know, the only other Cale I know of in our state is Cale Yarborough. Are you related?
Well, you know, that's who I was known for.
No way.
Mom and Daddy was big racing fans. Yeah, Mom and Daddy was big racing fans back in the 70s.
That's great. That's great.
I was talking about South Carolina. You know, Saturday night, as bad as we played, as awful as that game was, the undisciplined penalties, the drops, the interceptions, the fumbles, and all that, they still had a chance in the middle of the fourth quarter to kind of tighten that thing up. And I would caution all these people who are picking against us on Saturday. I'm not going to be so quick to do that. You know, don't you guys think, you know, I think you talked about this a little bit earlier in the summer, this new high-tempo offense. And I think on Saturday night, we saw that being what you guys have talked about could be a possible downfall to that. And I kind of feel about that was the inability to move the ball with it. Then you've got a real quick pulling out, and you're putting an oil-to-gas defense back on the field. So my thing is the play calling. It seems to me like Jake is always like we're trying to go with the deep passes to Brian Evans. You're trying to get the deep passes to Debo. I know you have to catch the deep balls. What about some more intermediate routes? What about some shy slips, some slants over the middle? What about Debo coming out of the backfield and, you know, getting out there in space against some guys that you know are going to be slower than Debo on the matchup? I mean, you know, I don't understand sometimes the play calling there. It seems like you really exploit their weaknesses and full strength. What do you guys think about that?
Well, look, I mean, when you come off a 10-point performance like they had against Kentucky, your offense is going to get picked apart by everybody who's watching. You should do this. You should do that. I can't disagree with anything that you just said. I mean, those are all good ideas if they can make it happen. I think in Jake's case, because he's in the pocket so much and pressure's coming at him, I would think they should throw more screen passes. They don't throw a bunch of screen passes in their offense. I always think a screen pass is a very safe. Look, they tried to be creative. They came out with the old, what's it called, Emery and Henry formation, where they split out the tackles.
Three offensive linemen up front. Yeah.
Now, little pod. And you know what? It worked in that Mon Denson with a full head of steam just barreled into the line, and they were moving right down the field until it stalled.
Here comes the biggest problem. And it's something we've talked about from the beginning of last year. We don't know definitively what they do well. They don't do one thing specifically well enough to have an offensive identity. And that is the biggest problem that we've seen over the last 17 games.
Quickly, Bill and Anderson, you got about 45 seconds to let us hear from you on this Talking Tuesday. Go.
Boy, you don't get the old friendly yours. You don't let me speak.
Oh, yes, sir, Coach. How are you?
We got this is the old touchdown club.
Yes.
I was calling about this week. Of course, we got another guy coming in here in about 2 or 3 weeks. I think it's still Cornblue, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, let's get him lined up for that.
Anderson.
Yeah.
I just hope it gets here on time. That's the
Don't hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath.
Never live that down. But we this week we got Brent Thompson coming in from the Citadel.
Oh, good.
But I did not realize that you were on the Roar until just three or 4 nights ago. I heard you.
Glad to have you. We have got to roar out of here because we're running out of time. But yeah, Coach, I'll see you in a few weeks. Call back when we have more time. Everybody have a great night. We've enjoyed it here on a Talking Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Time.